Well, guess what? It's October 1. You're here with myself, Jim Csek, Iain Burns out there in Ottawa. I'm in Kelowna. Look at the beautiful view in behind me there. Absolutely spectacular fall day here, October 1st, 9 a.m., right on time. We got a really big show as usual. Canada, a decade of self-harm, and it just continues to, and it continues, and it continues, and it continues. Layoffs, and more layoffs. Business Council raises the alarm on investment crisis in Canada. Carney not delivering results other than photo ops. Liberals hate being questioned. CRA bigger than the Canadian military. That's surprising, isn't it? While crime runs rampant in Canada, the Toronto mayor talks tacos and dances. Well, Rome burns, eh? Trump cashing in on censorship. And we got a lot more too. It's actually a really good show. Well worth your time. And if you're on here and you're watching, and if you could help us share it, I had a really good conversation with the guy this weekend. He called up. I post lots on LinkedIn, and he's very vocal of what's going on. But he wasn't even aware of Bill C-18 and what it's doing to the Canadian media landscape. We're being actually crushed and silenced by Bill C-18. So if you could help us share, amplify this voice, that would be so much appreciated as we go through this. But we're going to kick it off here with one of our most popular people ever in Canada. Melanie Joly is going to explain to you what's been going on in Canada here. Let's listen in on Melanie Joly.
But today, global markets are shifting. Supply chains are under pressure, and Canadians across the country are really feeling the impacts of all this. At the grocery store, at the gas pump, and when paying their bills. Affordability is the #1 issue in the minds of Canadians. And our government is rising to the challenge with a clear mandate to bring costs down and to build one strong Canadian economy. We've already cut taxes for 22 million Canadians, and we've cut the carbon tax. Competition is another way we're lowering prices because it keeps prices fair, drives innovation, and it provides Canadians with real choice. Let me be clear, this government will be hawkish on competition.
That's good. That's good. Let me be clear.
Is it good?
Let me be clear, Melanie. You did this. You did this. You did this. You and the Liberals did this. 10 years of self-harm. 10 years of self-harm. Destroying the Canadian economy while we're sit on vast riches. 10 years of self-harm, and it continues.
But she loves to talk about, she loves to talk as if she's just discovered the most obvious, what is to everyone else the most obvious sort of thing in the world. Like, she did it there in that clip that we just showed. But in the rest of that clip as well, she also said something like, we have discovered that economics and security are intertwined. It's just like, okay. Have you also discovered that, you can pull a cart with an ox? There's this technology out there. She's figured it out.
Well, the only thing, you can't push on a rope, Melanie, and that's what you guys have been doing for 10 years, pushing on a rope. And you've had an agenda that doesn't match what we have as resources here in Canada. You've been pushing something else that we don't have. And it's put us where we are today in this spot where, we're going to talk about it a lot more, but right now Trump has put more tariffs on Canada. And, they push it on Trump, but we put ourselves in this place. They don't owe us anything. The Americans don't owe us anything. We should be where they want us, not where we're talking like they owe us something. If we put our resources out there, they would want something. But they just want a virtue signal, and it just blows me away. Because here you go. Here's some reality for you. Let's listen in to Shannon Stubbs, a Conservative MP. This is what we've done for self-harm. What's that? You want to take a look for it there? It's just her name there. But anyway, it's more of the same. And now they're talking about affordability being the #1 thing. Wasn't that the whole thing all the time? What did they talk about in the election? What was the #1 thing? Anti-Trump, anti-American. That was the
Indeed. But also, what about the government that she served for many years? What was their number one priority? The previous government. I think it
Yeah.
was. I mean, if you can have a number of guesses, but probably climate change, I would say,
Let's play
or
this clip.
maybe feminism, something like that. I mean, certainly wasn't affordability.
Let's play this clip. We're ready.
Let me be extra clear about it. No other country, and importantly, no major oil or gas producing country, has imposed an absolute cap federally on its own production. Not the United States, Canada's biggest energy customer and competitor because of the last anti-development Liberal decade that killed at least 4 Canadian pipelines, dozens of LNG projects, turned the world away from Canada and drove hundreds of thousands of jobs and billions in major projects out of our country. Not Norway, not Saudi Arabia, not a single OPEC nation made up of hostile anti-freedom regimes with lower and often non-existent environmental and human rights standards. The Liberals, 20 months and 3 weeks ago, said the Canadian oil and gas cap was, quote, bold climate leadership. But common sense conservatives saw it for what it was, an unprecedented, arbitrary production cap, the only one of its kind in the entire world, self-harm to Canada by our own federal government.
That's good. I want to go back to, before we cover this, go back to Melanie Joly. She said they're really in on competition. Now competition is going to drive everything. Do you think Mark Zuckerberg calls up Elon Musk and says, you're taking away my traffic, and cries in his soup or tries to blame him? No, they try to get better, right? That's what we need to do. We need to get better instead of blaming the Americans for looking after themselves. I mean, that's their role. America first. That's their role. Our role should be Canada first. That's our role, right? But the Liberals take no responsibility. And this here by Shannon Stubbs here clearly outlines what we've done for self-harm for the past decade. I mean, we can show you chart after chart, and we have shown you chart after chart, what happened 10 years ago, and you can see the divergence from where we've gone to where we're at. And you just do it over and over again. And who had the wheel for the last 10 years? Who has the wheel still? And who's not making any change? Can't hear Ian. There we go. Start over. We couldn't hear you.
I'm just saying, it's not the Liberals' fault, obviously, but come on. We've got to look at the global context. But also, I don't know, it's they've obviously tried to change their tune a bit, haven't they? And there are murmurings now that there's an oil pipeline going to be approved any minute now, or it's going to be given the support of the federal government anyway, that Daniel Smith's apparently found.
They changed talking, but they don't. The actions don't support anything, and we're going to go through some of those things. Here's another one, and I said this. We warned about this a long time ago. If you don't change some of your policies on EV mandates and that, you're going to lose the automakers in Ontario. Here it is: GM moving production from Oshawa to Indiana. There you go. The question here by Ryan there is: will Doug Ford burn a Silverado today? Remember when he was pouring out the whiskey? Performative nonsense, right? Make us compete, make us better. I mean, we've actually artificially held down our Canadian dollar, which is the detriment of the consumer, so that we can compete on wages, right? That's why they came here in the first place, cheaper wages, right? And it's that reason. And here we are, we're giving them every reason to go back. These are American companies.
Well, there's two things.
These are American companies.
Yeah. Although they have been in Canada for so long that I think a lot of Canadians, or at least Ontarians, they thought that it was theirs now, didn't they? They thought it's our thing too. And then this is kind of the brutal reality that when you get a bully or whatever you want to call Mr. Trump in the White House, then they're going to go back to their base, and their base is very much the United States. But it is true, lower wages, and it's not just about the dollar, is it? It's also just Canada is a poorer country than the United States. Particularly in the last 10 or 15 years, that's become obvious.
Yeah, well, the last 10 years,
10,
last decade, we've gone, crime's gone up. I can show you chart after chart after chart, and we have. I mean, just show me what's improved.
That should be an advantage, shouldn't it? The sad thing is, I'm sure you're familiar with comparative advantage, the economic theory. It's almost like we're getting to that now, and what we have, our advantage is that we can produce things like a first world country while being poorer than the United States or some other first world countries like Switzerland and whatnot. But yeah, the cheap energy, it's that's another thing that should be a massive advantage, because Canada does have quite a lot of that thanks to its hydro. But yeah, it's true. I mean, we're not really playing to those strengths, are we? And then Mexico comes along. Obviously, they have dramatically lower wages, so they were kind of taking a lot of our lunch. So you got to compete.
Well, if you go in the cupboard of Canada's, things to sell, the riches. I mean, just common sense. If you just open the cupboard, it's full of stuff we refuse to sell: oil, gas, mines, uranium. All these things because we have some kind of agenda. And again, if you just apply the liberal policy on top of it, for the benefit of the few and the expense of the many, then it starts to make sense. Oh, we don't want to sell any of that stuff. We do want to sell all this green stuff, wind, and that many nations are now abandoning as too expensive. Hydrogen and all this stuff. Like how are hydrogen cars doing? Like, let's ask. I've invested in Ballard Energy a long time ago. Take a look at the stock chart of hydrogen. The market tells you the truth. Take a look at it. And here it is, the Business Council here in Ontario, the Business Council of Canada, is talking about Canada is in an investment crisis. We've been talking about that a lot here, though, too. Capital is fleeing Canada, and this is what happens when nations do things that are full of regulation, high taxation, and then there's better opportunities elsewhere. And right now, with Trump there, I mean, he has a mandate that he put out there that he's going to make America first, and like this government and the CBC make it sound like it's a slur word. MAGA, they make it sound like that's the worst thing in the world to be called. Daniel Smith talks about Alberta first. That's one province doing well. Why wouldn't we want to be Canada first? Like Anita Anand gets to the stage and talks how we're going to be multilateralism and that this is the solution for Canada. Is it the solution for Canada? Tell that to the people that can't afford to buy beef right now. Like, I mean, even hamburger, like beef. I was just in Costco, like beef is like through the roof. It's 300% higher than it was 5 years ago. Easily.
Yeah, it's quite very noticeable with beef, and that is even Statistics Canada in the inflation reports every month. Even they've noticed it. That's when you know it's a big deal if it's shown up in the stats as well. It's not just a conspiracy theory. But this is very interesting though from the Business Council of Canada because really, this intervention here is not so much about the investment crisis. It's more about the federal budget. That it seems like quite a lot of people in positions of responsibility in this country seem to be very, very anxious about this budget that's coming up on November the 4th. I think they promised, didn't they? Next month, anyway.
The budget that we haven't had forever.
He says, yeah, what he says here, the CEO of this Business Council of Canada, is he points to things like everyone's favorite debt to GDP ratio, but also the way of organizing it into capex and operational capital expenditure and operational expenditure. This kind of trickery that the Liberals are about to pull off to try and make it look like the deficit is not as bad as it in fact is. It's just a little bit worrying, really, that it's more and more people are popping their heads up. This doesn't really happen that often, as anybody that follows the news is aware. It doesn't happen that often in Canada where you see this kind of thing. And for the interim PBO head, to come out and use the language that he used last week.
Shocking, stupefying,
this is quite frightening. But also, just the very fact that this conversation is going on is also bad for investment in Canada and bad for the Canadian economy. And it's kind of, we really are in quite sort of frightening times, I think.
Yeah, capital wants certainty. And guess who's offering it right now? I mean, this is the harsh reality. Guess who's offering certainty for your capital? Guess who's offering certainty for capital?
The orange one.
Yeah, keep slurring and just keep doing all those things. Again, just ask yourself how much coverage CBC and CTV do on this topic, which is probably the most important topic right now in Canada. But they will put up stories about Kai Trump, posing in front of the White House, selling golf merchandise. How is that important to Canadians putting food on the table? I'm just not sure. Top story right now on CBC's website. So if you go on CBC News and you go to top stories, it's where they put the big boys, the real big stories, is what Palestinians think of Trump's proposed ceasefire plan. So that's a perfect example. I'm so glad you said that. Just go on CBC's website. We're not making this up.
they really do focus on. There you go. They really do focus on just the
Well,
most
look at the other stories
ridiculous
there. Look at the other
stories.
stories there. Trump, like Trump. How many Trump? There's 3 Trump stories. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 Trump stories. They're just right there. That's good. 4 Trump stories right there. Where's the budget? Where's this path to Venezuela? Like, I mean, this is what we're on. Jason Jacks, again, a CPA, MBA, alarming, shocking, stupefying, unsustainable.
Not language that you typically hear from a bean counter, is it really? I'm sure you would say.
No. And then Anita Anand made that big speech at the UN and talked about how Canada is leading the world in multilateralism and Canada will take the lead. And if they pan out and show you the room, empty. Nobody cares what Canada has to say. Nobody cares. And it's performative, it's virtue signaling, it's nonsense. We need a government that is serious about getting to work to help Canadians meet their bills. 89% of Canadians don't think they can, like they're $200 away from meeting their monthly obligations. And then we stat after stat after stat, and they just continue down this road, driving investment out of Canada, and this is it right here. Our biggest resource, and that is our biggest resource is energy, and yet we don't want to deploy it for some unknown reason. We want to put nothing but roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. Label it with climate change, label it with this, and label it with that, and give voices like CBC and CTV. Don't go there other than take a look at that nonsense. They're definitely selling you a story. But anyway, lots of layoffs there. And Smith blames the Liberals as Imperial Oil pledges to slash jobs. And that's Alberta Premier Daniel Smith and Tim Hodgson have expressed disappointment with U.S.-owned Imperial Oil planning to lay off 20% of its workforce by 2027. And she says it's due to uncertainty in the industry following 10 years being hampered and hobbled by federal government decisions. They're going where capital is accepted, because what is Trump saying? Drill, baby, drill. They're going to open up fields. They're going to open up offshore stuff. So where are they going to go?
I mean, Trump's even got a hat that says drill, baby, drill, hasn't he? That's how serious he is about it.
The CBC and CTV put out stories on how oil is destroying the world. So why would you want to stay in a nation that makes you scared to have, like, if you walk around with an Esso logo? Esso used to be one of the coolest logos. Esso used to sponsor Hockey Night in Canada all the time. Esso used to be like really cool, you know what I mean? Like you would say, but these companies, basically, you can go down in some of the cities there. Instead of like a big logo on top of the building, they have tiny little logos because they just don't want a bunch of protesters out front. This is what we've done to ourselves. This is our self-harm. Meanwhile, other nations,
somebody's done it to us.
Yeah.
Somebody's inflicted this harm.
Look at Norway and what they've done. Their sovereign wealth fund has over $300,000 per capita. All off of what? Oil and gas.
Yeah. Well, and they've also, as you've pointed out a number of times, they've also gone really hard on electrification and lots of sort of green policies internally while selling their fossil fuels overseas. That's what a smart country does, isn't it?
I didn't put it in here, but you want to talk about smart. Evan Solomon, the failed journalist and art dealer. I don't know who sells art anyway, and he was selling that art to Mark Carney as well, one of his art dealing customers. And then he went to work for Eurasia Group. Now he was on the stage there talking about how Canada is now touring across Canada, talking about an AI strategy. So we're going to wring our hands, waste money, and meanwhile, we're probably 2 years away from singularity, and all the American companies are so far ahead of us. And we're going to, go around Canada and ask you, the consumer, what you think of our AI strategy should be. More.
I mean, it's basically going to end up. It's going to end up a bit like the EU, isn't it? And it'll just be, the approach will be almost exclusively regulatory. It's like, how can we regulate this thing that the Americans have invented that we haven't even tried to compete with them on? Because it is true. I mean, while he's doing foolish things like that, you have the Americans, you have like Grok, you have, I mean, there's so many of them, but the main ones
All
like
of them.
Elon Musk.
So many of them, all of them.
Yeah, ChatGPT. No, I mean the names like Perplexity, that's one, isn't it? And
Odd, yeah.
Claude and all. There's so many of them.
Yeah.
They're just like, it seems to me they're almost like they're burning the midnight oil, aren't they? To get the next version out, and then the next version, and the next version. While we haven't even really started yet. It's
We
kind
don't even
of
have a version. Like there was a laugh there. One of the auto execs or one of the auto parts suppliers came out and said Canada needs to have its own automobile company. Really? It was called the
oh
Bricklink.
yeah, that was funny. That was the head of the union, wasn't it? The head of the auto
but
union.
but also there is a Canadian guy that is probably the only successful auto startup in the past 50 years that we have vilified here in Canada. His name is Elon Musk, and the most important man in history right now, in modern industrialist history, in this technological change here. And that's been said by many people other than Canada, of course.
And he's also someone who's happy to go overseas to build, like he's in Germany
Berlin.
and in China.
Yeah.
Yeah, he goes overseas. So the saddest thing of all is that like there maybe was a possibility for Canada to benefit from the very like vanguard of the tech revolution.
Do you know where there is an opportunity right now for Canada? AI, Kevin O'Leary pitched it, is just like allow us to use our energy to build massive data centers and tap into the the LNG and the oil and gas and all that stuff. But there's no talk about that. Anyway, this is what the Carney Liberals were doing while they were running for election. They ran a poll there because they wanted to get everybody all that rabid frothing about hating America. The poll was we should do an energy boycott to the United States. I mean, that would have worked out so well, when we were talking about, cutting off the electricity. Ontario and Quebec was going to cut off the electricity, not realizing that, like BC relies on that electricity from the United States. Also, all our oil and gas that goes out east goes through the United States. I mean, it's just crazy. And then Trump also said at this time, he said that if you do that, this will be, what is it said? Because Ford said he wanted to do this, but he rescinded it after one day because Trump said a financial price so big it will be read about it in the history books. I mean, he likes to pontificate for sure. But, this is what they did to win the election. This is what they did. They stirred up this anti-American rhetoric, and we're still living with it.
Quite crazy that was being contemplated, because that was going to be self-harm, that wasn't it? Because if you start that with the US, they can give it back probably worse than we can give it to them.
But it wasn't about what's strategic for Canada, what's going to work for Canada. It was like, let's poll the voter base and see what rabid meat they want today. Is that how we have policy? If that's not populism, what is?
Well, yeah. I mean, this would fit into the category of populism, because populism it's not really a word that's ever been properly defined, but it's kind of this idea that it's like those people over there screwing up your life, and I'm the one that can protect you from them. That's basically what it is. And that was exactly what the Liberal campaign consisted of. The Americans are doing this. The Tories will just make it worse or be traitors or something, and I'm the one that can intervene and protect you.
There's a lot more for you to get mad at. Yeah, we got more. So don't get too complacent here. Canada's trade with this is where Mark Carney went off to Europe there. He to sort of the UK there to watch that rugby match. But he said he was making deals. So he was met with the Prime Minister, and I can't even pronounce her name. Can you, Kristen? Maybe Frostador. That's a good name for
Where is this? Oh, Kristen Frostadottir. This is the one that she was there in that the famous London conversation that they had on the stage. She was there, and then the person that hosted it referred to her as the Prime Minister of Finland, which I've never seen before. I've never seen somebody make a mistake that bad in an event like that. Well worth watching.
Look at the trade deals we have with this vast nation called Iceland. What are we selling? Ice back and forth? What's going on there? Exports of 51 million, imports of 160 million. That'll put food on the table for this big energy nation. I'm gonna guess that where Iceland gets its energy? Norway.
I don't know. I think they might have geothermal in Iceland, but it's such a tiny country. I mean, it's smaller than like, or it's a similar size to like the Central Okanagan or something like that. It's like a few 100,000 people.
But this
So
this is what they think of the voters. They think they put this out and show you how we don't need the United States. Look what we have here. Look what we have. And here's a chart that actually Canadian exports by country. So there's the United States, and there's the rest. The rest, all the rest, you know, like Iceland doesn't make the list because it's too far down on the list, right? Like it would probably be, you know, a few other tiers down, but there's the rest. And the 9 don't even add up to a quarter of the top one.
well, that is quite fascinating though when you look at number 2 and number 3. All the brouhaha with China. I mean, that says to me that we basically just don't have any trade, or we certainly don't export like anything to China, basically. Because they think of the size of the Chinese market, and they only take the same amount as the British, which is a tiny country. I mean, Britain itself is about the size of a Chinese province.
Temu probably sells that much to Canada in a week. I'm only kidding.
Yeah, I'd like in the other direction. It would be enormous, but you need to buy more of our stuff, China. Come and get some canola.
Why aren't they serious about the United States? Why do they keep sticking a stick in the eye? That just blows me away. It just absolutely. And here's another. Dan Albus put this out, and this is from the National Post, though he retweeted this. Twice in 4 days, Carney scheduled official photo ops. So they're good at photo ops because there's that fake building, and then there was the fake, or the bags of wheat in Mexico there with the stickers that didn't even comply with Canada, French, English language requirements for labeling. And they couldn't even get that part right. You know what I mean? It's just like they got, what, 20-some-year-olds working there doing all this fake stuff. And why all the fake photo ops? Where's the real deal? Like, you know, like Wendy's used to say, where's the beef, man? Like, where's the beef? Because it surely isn't on Canadian kitchen tables because they can't afford it. That's where the beef is, not there.
So I must object to this headline from the National Post referring to it as a literal Potemkin village. It's not literally a Potemkin village, is it? That's in Russia. But anyway, no, the idea behind that is true, though. It's to try to distort reality. But then, you know, they've been doing this for a very long time. Leaders, it's not, it isn't just Carney, is it? We'll cut them some slack for once.
This one here, this is what they resort to when they get caught and when they get questioned. And this is the typical. When the Liberals get questioned and they don't have an answer, they go and like, this is not the time to be doing this, right? So this is when they question Patty Hajdu. She's facing the Human Rights Committee, questioning her over Cabinet's unprecedented use of the Canadian Labour Code to quash lawful strikes. We've seen that with Air Canada and Canada Post, right? And then it comes back and it says like, you know, this is not the time to be talking about this. This is the time for Canada to stick together. They just don't like being questioned.
No, and they're not unique in that regard, are they? Their friends over the border, their ideological brethren over the border, also had that reputation when they were in power, didn't they? And certainly in the Joe Biden era.
And then says, you know, do we want to have a study just because we're trying to embarrass the government because this is a hot issue right now and everybody's talking about it? And that's from Liberal MP Annie Couturis. I would like to think that that's not the case. I'd like to make sure everyone around this table is working in good faith for Canadians. Are we working in good faith for Canadians? 10 years, like look at all the charts. Like I would like to be there and just start putting charts on the table. Where are we working for Canadians in good faith? Where? Show me the evidence where we've been working in good faith for all Canadians, other than the benefit of the few at the expense of the many. I don't know. And this is what
But they still thought it was important to go research the Canadian people's views on an energy blockade of the United States. That was important.
And this is how, like there's a lot of companies leaving, like going to the US because of tariffs, regulation, taxation, all these things. And what's the union's response? We told you about her once before, where she said that they were going to start seizing assets. Now they want to prosecute tariff jumpers. Canadian companies that shift production in the United States to evade tariffs should face prosecution under a 40-year-old law, says Unifor petition. This is the Unifor to the Commons Finance Committee. That's the largest private sector union. So again, you're going to scare capital from coming to Canada, that you're going to seize their assets, you're going to like penalize them if they can't compete. And they go, you know what I mean? Like this is not going to bring more investment to Canada. It's going to scare more away.
This is the same union led by the woman that said that, what you just said, isn't it? We should seize assets and nationalize.
Lana Payne, and she's the Unifor National President. May 20th, sort of extraordinary measures were required. This is the fight of our lives. We must take a stand now. Corporations need to understand every move they make will have consequences. No company should have a false idea they can move jobs south and then get a free ride shipping products back to Canada. Capital goes
to
where
be fair,
appreciated.
I mean, Trump is kind of doing something similar to that, isn't he? I mean, that's kind of central to his economic policy. It's like if you've offshored and you've gone and abandoned, or if you're planning on doing that, abandoning US workers, we will tariff your products when you try and sell them into the United States. Exactly. But obviously, it's a little bit different when you're talking about the world's #1 consumer whose citizens spend the most money on products, and like the essential nation in economics, at least, which is the United States. It's different when you talk about them versus when you're talking about a country of 40 million that's not, particularly high up the consumer list.
Well, I mean, for the people that want to make direct comparisons to Canada and the United States, we're not in the same boat. We don't have the US dollar as a reserve currency that all the central banks use. Canada's dollar is not a reserve currency for anybody, not even ourselves. We buy US T-bills. We don't have a military. We're going to talk about that later. We don't have a military of any consequence. All we can do is stand up at the podium like Anita Anand there at the UN to an empty room and talk about how Canada is going to lead. That's what we have.
But that's the point. I mean, the British talk about this a lot. The British actually do have a bit of a military and nuclear weapons and so on, and the pound is a bit more desired than the Canadian dollar. But they're similar countries. But in Britain, they talk about soft power. And they say things like, the monarchy, and I don't know if they still say things like the Beatles, but you know what I mean, like cultural power. And that Britain can therefore, if you're the leader of Britain or somebody powerful in Britain, you can stand up and say, do this, please. And the soft power will persuade people to go along with it. I think in Canada, there's this assumption that maybe we also have like loads and loads of soft power. And somebody like Anita Anand can just stand up and say something and people will be like, oh, all right, I'm going to listen because it's Canada. I mean, if they are under that impression, I think they need to be, they need to be disabused of that notion. I don't think Canada has much soft power. I think Canada nowadays, it's almost like a meme, I find, on the internet. Like it's when Americans and Europeans look at Canada, they look at it as kind of sort of hyper-liberalism, like liberalism gone wrong or something like that. It seems to be it's like a lesson for other countries. So I really don't think that we're not swimming in soft power right now, or hard power.
10 years ago, people used to wear the maple leaf all around the world because Canada was respected and was seen as one of these countries with tons of freedom and opportunity. You don't get that anymore. I mean, I was in Vegas a while ago, and when I talked to them from Canada, he just laughed. He's from Russia, and he just laughed. He said that nobody wants to go to Canada. He said it's just been ruined. So there you go.
It's that's the soft power. The reputation of this country has taken a massive hit over the last 10 years.
This is just Shannon Stubbs again. We'll go by that. We already talked about that. And then this is just a thing talking about, the federal government is unwilling to bail out the Canada Post because it's losing too much money. Yet we provide $1.55 billion a year to the CBC. What's their top story again today? What was it again? What
do Palestinians think of Donald Trump?
There's 4 stories on their top page of what is there, 10? We'll pull up their website again. Let's have a look. How many stories in that top fold there? And how many of them have the word Trump in them for the rabid? Like who goes there? Is this like, let's see, there you go. So there's their top story, Palestinian, they get Trump story. And then Trump.
Tony Blair.
Yeah, don't go down.
Trump,
just
more Trump.
Trump, right? Where's
And then we
the
got
budget?
belugas. Don't forget the belugas there. And also, apparently, there's been a gas explosion at an apartment in New York City. That's
Yeah.
very high up in the agenda. Just, I mean, unfathomable. Absolutely unfathomable.
Where's the
The
budget?
editor, or the news editor, the page editor, whoever it is in charge of this at CBC, is quite literally having a laugh, I think.
Let's just for a joke. Let's pull up CTV News. Like you search CTV News and see what they have at the top of the fold. Let's see if the budget makes it on the top fold there. Let's see if they have it.
More belugas. I've jumped the gun and we got belugas. We got belugas, we got Trump,
No, no, you got to go to
and we've got
CTV News.
Montreal. There's been a shooting, sadly.
CTV News. You got to go to that one. Yeah, not that other one. What do we got here? There's a shooting at Starbucks. There's a picture of Trump. I can't see it from I got my glasses on here.
It says the fact that Canada is mentioned is not good. Analyst says of Trump's latest 51st state jab.
That's good. That's good. There you go. Trump. Here's a little meme for you. If all humans suddenly lost the ability to lie, which industry would collapse first? There's a thought for you. There's thought-provoking. Which industry would collapse first?
Surely the professional liars in Hollywood, the actors.
All right, let's play this clip here from another MP in Parliament here, asking a question.
How many full-time equivalents are there right now for the employee count of the CRA?
How many employees? About 58,000 in the agency, about 58,000.
Army of 58,000 tax collectors. The Canadian Army has only 33,899 full-time active personnel. Your army of tax collectors.
Who are we at war with?
The taxpayer. Was she? I have to ask. Was she speaking through a translator there? Does she not speak English?
Yeah, no, she was just didn't want to answer the question, so
Because that sounded to me like it was dubbed. Like somebody, like you know how they have translators there. If that's the case,
just stalling.
Then yeah, remarkable. But yeah, that tells you about the priorities, really, doesn't it, of the federal government.
So here's another one from Holly Nolan Blacklocks. The president of the Ontario College, listed among the heaviest users of foreign student permits, says Canada lost trust and credibility in curbing applications. Imagine that, eh? Imagine that, right?
Because I mean, that's your favorite phrase nowadays. You can't look for a better example, can you? Of for the few, not the many.
For the benefit of the few, the expense of the many, right?
It was about the few. It was about the people that were on the gravy train. It was about the people who were getting constant pay rises. These university administrators on like several $100,000 a year, despite having no obvious talents. They were loving this. I mean, there's never been a better time for people like that, has there? And while everyone else had to kind of deal with the consequences of suddenly not being able to see a doctor or get their kid into a school or something.
And then, they were taking in, like, what was this? MP Michelle Rempel Gardner from Calgary says that, from 21 to 24, you guys took in about 50,000 international students. And did the federal government give you the impression that level of permitting what you were receiving go on indefinitely? And it's just, they were living off of it and just living off of it, right?
It was a bonanza. It was a gold rush, wasn't it? And it's kind of the greatest shame of all isn't necessarily that they did it. That is kind of shameful and selfish, but understandable, I suppose. I would say the greatest shame is that they did it, and then when they tried to justify themselves, or when people tried to, like, when people realized they started to take it away from them, they started saying things like, "Oh no, like now we're not going to cure cancer," and things like that. We're not going to be able to do it. It's like that's not what this is about at all. This is not like, and they talk about it's like an attack on education and stuff like that. No, it's an attack on a scam.
Guess how much David Agnew, the president of Toronto Seneca College of Applied Arts and Technology, and this is not like a huge college, right, or university. Guess how much he makes a year? Take a stab at it.
$500,000? That's the figure.
$450,000 a year. This is so they were living off of this, and everybody was like the few were living high on the hog, taking foreign students before they would take Canadian kids, and this is just like the gravy train. And like a lot of the, it's again, a lot of corporations relied on cheap labor. This whole temporary foreign workers program. Again, these are liberal policies. And you know what it did? It taxed food banks and all kinds of things, so these people couldn't even look after themselves. But hey, the colleges were getting scads of cash. We've seen the layoffs. We've done tons of stories on colleges. I guess these colleges. What do you say? There's some in Ontario, like catering college, that were making massive amounts of money. And just like these pop-up colleges were just making up crazy amounts of money, and enough to afford to pay Mr. Agnew there $450,000 a year. Are you making that at home? Are you making that as a Canadian?
If you're not, you know how to now. Just do something that screws over the rest of the country but benefits you. Then you'll be absolutely wadded. And then you'll have enough money to leave when everything goes wrong.
Yeah, and then just make sure that you put that slogan prominently there. Say, part of the Liberal Party for the benefit of the few, the expense of the many. And then make sure that you get into that club. Maybe there's a secret handshake or something like that. Because right now, the media in Canada, for the benefit of the few, the expense of the many. So the CBC, Mark Carney said it himself, he's going to fund them more while he chokes off independent media. And with Bill C-18, has choked off our ability to access our audience that we earn serving our community for over a decade. And meanwhile, fills the trough with CBC. And the first thing they did, what did they do? Just like Mr. Agnew there, they slopped up, right? All the executives got a raise. Mark Carney gave them another $150 million after winning the election to raise their budget to $1.55 billion. The first thing they did was give themselves a raise, the executive team. Imagine that, hey?
Well deserved.
Well deserved. Obviously well deserved, right? Go look at their website. Look how they're talking to Canadians. Go look at that and see. I'm sure that, you just put up anti-Trump rhetoric, and just go check it at. It's steady. Go look at the CTV X account. Look what they put out there on a constant basis. But here's some good news. A couple of days late and a couple bucks short. The CRTC yesterday, they don't need a phone book anymore. The telecom industry, you don't have to have a phone book. I don't know the last time I saw a phone book. I don't know. Who has a landline? I guess that's the question. I don't know.
No,
and you talk about
businesses. That's all I can think of.
You talk about our telecom industry, and here's what they should be doing. They talk about how they got to get internet to different parts of the world, a bit different rural parts of Canada here, because there's some places don't have cell. I worked up north at a mine site. Just Starlink, man. Just Starlink. Just get over yourself, and get over yourself.
It is sad though that the age of the phone book. People who are like very young won't even know what we're talking about there, will they? That maybe they've seen it in a film once or something. But it is it's kind of sad. It seems like an era, it seems like we've lost our innocence in a way. Because it used to be when I was a kid, I can remember everybody was in the phone book. Even if you just private citizens, if you just wanted to phone somebody that you knew but you didn't know their number, you could probably find them in the phone book. It's kind of remarkable that we had that level of transparency and openness.
They were just absolutely predatory, the Yellow Pages salespeople. I mean, just on businesses.
Yeah.
I can remember how much it would cost for a page, an ad, like pizza. Like when you go to pizza, then you go to the big cities and the phone book's yay thick. And, the companies would call themselves 5A pizza because it'd be 1A pizza, double A, triple A, 4A, because you want to get first in the phone book. So when people are absolute insanity, absolute insanity. But here's another one for the Liberals, this group petitioning them. And this is how in Canada, though, too, we have fringe parties that represent what? How much does the Green Party represent in Canada? 0.5% of the population? If that, I don't know.
Yeah, a few percent, I think. I'm not sure what they got in the federal election, but I think it was under 10 anyway.
How many seats do they have in Canada here?
Wow, so they actually, you were a lot closer. I was thinking maybe of BC, where they're a bit beefier. They sometimes get into double figures for the percentage of the vote. But in the federal election just gone, it was 1.22% of the vote went to the Greens. But I suppose they only stand in they don't stand in that many ridings, do they, federally? So,
And
but yeah, they have an outsized influence for sure.
yeah, because of the country being kind of split with the the Liberals and the Conservatives, and when it's that close, they tend to have more influence, especially in British Columbia here. But these environmental groups, I did an interview with I think the Seniors for Climate Change, or what was it? Some kind of seniors activist group there that didn't want a whole
Yeah, and
bunch.
they were part of the what was that? Some sort of protest movement. I can't remember the name of it now. But where they'd all joined together, hadn't they? All the like pro-Palestine and everything. They were all in it together.
I asked her about jobs for youth, and she said, we don't need jobs for youth. Everybody should just work for the Climate Corps. And here they are petitioning the government for to launch a Climate Corp, and they want $1 billion a year. We've got tons of money for this, right? Don't we? So the cabinet proposed a similar initiative in its election platform, but at a pilot at, like a smaller amount. But they want $1 billion a year toward this Climate Corps here. The investment must go further to truly meet the moment. Good green jobs for young Canadians, wrote this climate action group. The Liberal Party in its April 28th election platform, Canada Strong, stated a Mark Carney-led government will establish a youth climate corps pilot, which will provide paid skills training young Canadians to quickly respond to climate emergencies. And they estimated about $28 million annually for 2 years at most. But hey, why not ask for $1 billion a year, right? And this is going to go well for Canada. This is what I mean, self-harm. We just basically just... And of course, David Suzuki. And if you go look at David Suzuki's
he's everywhere, isn't he? That guy.
He's done quite well, though, too. As is, Stephen Guilbeault's companies have done quite well in this climate thing, as has Brookfield. Imagine that. Again, for the benefit of the few at the expense of the many.
They're not exactly living like the Buddha, are they? These people who they try and act like the Buddha when they go around and try and advise people to stop doing things, to withdraw from life and live in harmony with nature. But somehow, yeah, they all seem to make a lot of money and go all over the world and have these big conferences and things. Something I found funny there, a line you didn't read, which was they said it should, but the budget in 2025 should invest an initial down payment of $1 billion a year. That's just initial. We're gonna go further than that.
Well, I do want to get that young lady that just won the leadership here for the Green Party, BC Green Party, because she says that they don't want any LNG, they don't want any oil and gas, they don't want any this, that, and another thing. And you wonder how they're going to pay for anything. I mean, I guess they never form government, so they don't have to be realistic. But what was you said there? Just tax. I think her post said tax billionaires out of existence. Again, that will cause capital to come to Canada, right? That'll just Elon Musk will say that's the place I want to invest, right?
Well, she's also very, as we said before, she's very active in the sort of Indigenous land rights, or whatever you want to call it, movement. So presumably she would be in favor of quite a lot of territory in Canada and British Columbia no longer belonging to sort of private citizens, but to bands and First Nations and things. Again, if you want, even the money that's still in BC, if you want that to be sucked out into Washington State or whatever, do that. That's a good idea.
The minimum wage went up in Ontario this October 1st, and Danielle Smith got the lowest minimum wage in Canada now. She said she will not be raising minimum wage because doing so will hurt the youth employment. And we've kind of seen that in Canada. I mean, I've talked to, I remember one employer here in the Okanagan here had several grocery stores. And then, the margins are so slim in these specialty grocery stores. And it was just usually students that she had working there, that's their first job. And, with EHT, that, and a whole bunch of things, they closed them all up. All 5 of them closed and said that they just couldn't do it. They couldn't compete with the large stores. So, but here's the minimum wages across Canada. Here, we'll just kind of go through the list. Alberta's at $15, and I guess it was high at one point because it hasn't changed. It's unchanged since 2018. So it would have been one of the higher minimum wages at one point. They just haven't done anything with it forever. British Columbia at 1785 now. That's effective June 1st. Manitoba it just went up from 1580, so it wasn't far away from Alberta's. It's now 16 bucks, so $1 more. New Brunswick 1565, very close to Alberta. Newfoundland 16. I mean, people in Newfoundland lucky to have a job ever since they kiboshed all their oil stuff. Northwest Territories 1695. I don't know. That's a tough place to make 1695. Nova Scotia 1570. None of it at 1975. And most people would say, "Want to go live in none of it?" And I said, "You'll say, I'll have none of it."
Well, certainly when a tomato costs like $30 or something, I don't know. That's pretty tough to live on that, isn't it? But then again, I mean,
I lived in the north, and it's definitely expensive for sure.
When this story though, I heard it on CBC this morning, and I mean, I'm not surprised to say this about CBC. I wouldn't expect them to do any better because they're not very high quality. But you would think, wouldn't you, from a high quality news provider or something like that, somewhere you would have some information about economists' theories of minimum wage, because you read these stories and it's like, also Danielle Smith is just Scrooge. Then that's it. That's the only logical conclusion to why she's doing this. You wouldn't know that economics experts, professors, and all the rest of it, they talk about the pros and cons of just having a minimum wage at all. Like whether that is actually beneficial to the people or if it's not. Like, this is an active argument, and there are economists that devote their lives to this subject, but you would never know that that's like a hotly debated issue, would you? When you read like an average news report, it's just like, oh, minimum wage is going up. That's just a good thing, unambiguously. It's like not quite. There are lots and lots of arguments about this.
I can tell you right
very,
now,
very serious and highly educated people.
I can tell you right now, $15 an hour is worth more than $17.85 in BC. No PST,
Yeah.
cheaper rent, cheaper housing, cheaper gas. Like, you know what I mean? Like $15 in Alberta is better than $17.85. So just, before you start virtue signaling, start to realize what it costs in British Columbia and other places because of tax. Ontario too. They got that beautiful thing there called the HST, don't they?
Yeah, beautifully harmonized. Talk about the butter. But there's another warning from places like Britain, my the land of my fathers there, where they introduced a living wage. A Conservative government actually did that. And you kind of see this, they have a name for it. I can't remember what it is, like wage compression, I think, where it's like almost everybody, no matter what their job is paid very similar amounts of money. And there's no differentiation across the professions, even between like management and staff, like really not big variety in wages. And that's, I've read a few economists talking about that or trying to describe that, and they said that is a consequence of that policy of the living wage.
So here's Anita Anand, the foreign minister, is off to India and China. I mean, look what Trudeau and them did with the India relationships, and where she plans to take two distinct approaches, mending frayed ties. Who frayed those ties? Frayed, it was you. Frayed, it was you.
But apparently Justin Trudeau, like, he's just some stranger that none of these people have ever met. That's the way that they act now.
Frayed not, right? You know what I mean? Frayed, it was you. And India is one of the tougher places to do trade. They got some of the biggest tariffs going into India. Like, it's hard to sell stuff into India. Very, very hard. So good luck in India. Same for China, right? Same for China. Like, I mean, China is about China, right? Guess who China puts first? Is it Maca? Because they don't seem to go after, and they don't call a slur on China, because China's all about China, right?
Oh, well, you could even say the Communist Party of China. That's their priority.
There's no disputing, but no, they just figure that they need to attack Trump all the time, and just, it's crazy. I don't know what this thing is here. Did you put this in here? This lane is hot. What is that? I have no idea what that is. So let's just I don't know what that is. We're going to move on to our BC news here, next segment here.